Hi there, this is Teresa Eicher with Counseling and Wellness Services of Archibald, and we are in partnership with Jill Holgrave Wellness Consulting Services. And I wanted to take a little bit of time with you today to further discuss the season change, the time change. Believe it or not, we are all continuing to adjust. I'm not sure about you, but in our household, we certainly feel the change in season. We spend a lot of time outside and we have had far more time indoors looking for activities that we can do in our household. So, those can be pretty big transitions. I wanted to talk with you a little bit today just about sleep and how sleep impacts us. And so, sleep is a huge stabilizer for both our physical as well as our mental health. And many times we see that when people don't have good sleep, they really can struggle with their mental health. And so, oftentimes what we will do is we will recommend people to, just getting on a sleep routine, a sleep schedule. And I want to highlight just a few components of getting into a sleep schedule and routine. So the first is consistency. So really what we're looking for is establishing a time frame in which we're going to sleep. So a time to go to bed and a consistent time to wake up in the morning. We're going to encourage 8 hours of sleep. I know some people can kind of debate that here and there as far as, I sleep better on, 6 hours of sleep. So each person's body is a little bit different, but it seems the average tends to be somewhere around 8 hours. Ideally, you would be in a quiet, cooler, darker environment, just because that allows the body to kind of like slip into sleep, relax. Many times I'll encourage people, maybe before they go to bed, just to do some guided imagery, just to think about something that's relaxing for them and to do some deep breathing. Many times it's our thoughts, it might be anxiety that's going through our body, that tension that just doesn't allow us to get into a good sleep rhythm and get that quality sleep. So, you know, if that's something that you want to do, taking a look at, okay, how do I incorporate this into my sleep routine? Maybe we do that 30 minutes before we go to bed, 15 minutes before we go to bed, with the goal of, being in bed, ready to fall asleep at a specific time and get those 8 hours of sleep. Finally, we also really address issues with blue light, electronics, what we're exposing kind of our brain to before we go to bed. So often people are in their beds using their tablets, using their phones on the laptop. And really, we find that just the light that comes from those devices can be really stimulating to the brain. And so it's not an indicator to the brain like, hey, it's time for me to, shut down, to go to sleep. It's actually an indicator to stay awake. And so we just really encourage about an hour before bedtime to start removing devices and putting those aside, just so that we can relax our body. And then finally, caffeine intake. So I know more and more with how fast our days go, a lot of times we just feel fatigued. And so we incorporate more and more caffeine and use that in an effort to get through our days. But we really know that the more caffeine that people take in, just the more dysregulated their bodies can become. And so certainly cutting off caffeine, maybe around 3 o'clock each day, would be helpful. But also, between waking up and getting to that 3 o'clock time frame, just being conscious and mindful of how much you're actually taking in. I know I've had situations in the past where I'm working with people and they're drinking large quantities of energy drinks and coffee and pop, and they end up dealing with anxiety disorders and even panic attacks that are really induced in some ways by the amount of caffeine that they're taking. So, just something to think about as we navigate and kind of settle in for this winter season and getting on a good sleep routine. I also want to take a moment today just to kind of hold some space and do some reflection on our Thanksgiving holiday. And so often as we approach the holiday season and get into it, things are just moving quickly. And so we kind of rush through things and we don't take the opportunity to step back and reflect. And it doesn't really have to be a whole lot of time. But I'm just going to encourage you to take that time and reflect on what really seemed to be working for you over that holiday season. Did the schedules work? How was travel? Did you host family? Did that work? Did you host Thanksgiving? Did that work? How were relationships during that time? How were boundaries within those relationships? It's really just an opportunity to look at back on that and see what worked and maybe what also didn't work. And so if something didn't work, it certainly presents an opportunity for us to kind of evaluate that and do some problem solving around it. So if it didn't work, why not? And how might we approach fixing that? And just getting a sense of how do we want to do that differently if a similar circumstance is going to be presenting over the Christmas holiday. Thanksgiving many times is just a little bit of a taste of what we can ultimately encounter on more of an extended holiday for Christmas. And so just taking that time. I also really just encourage you that as you look at that and see the pros, the cons, the strengths, the limitations, that you just approach it with an attitude of gratitude. There's so many good things that can come out of this time of year. Yes, it can be hard, and I don't want to minimize that for anyone. But there's also a lot of good that's going on around us. And the truth is that we know through research that when we can, have a heart for gratitude and be able to see the good amongst the storm, the good amongst the hard, we know that people's wellness and their day-to-day happiness remains higher and improved. Again, just evaluating, what went well, what was hard, what would we problem solve and do differently, and what are we grateful for through the process. And if there's a person that you're grateful for, maybe it's reaching out to them and just sharing, like, I'm really grateful for you as we approach that Thanksgiving holiday, and thank you. We underestimate how much that can brighten someone else's day. So I hope you're well. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I will see you next week.